Captain Lee Hanna stood quietly on the bridge of her ship, the UES Defiance. Through the large front window she could see something amazing in the darkness of space. A huge structure floated in front of them, bigger than any city she had ever seen. It was made of what looked like clear crystal and metal, spinning slowly as it caught light from distant stars. "Captain," said Park Miho from his seat at the communications desk. "They are trying to talk to us. The message is coming through now." Hannah nodded and walked closer to the center of the bridge. Around her, the other crew members were doing their jobs, but she could see they were excited. This was the moment they had all been waiting for. After years of traveling through space, they had finally found other intelligent life. "Put it on the main screen," Hannah said calmly. The front window changed to show a large room filled with strange creatures. In the center stood something that looked like a walking crystal tower, at least 3 times taller than a human. Its body seemed to be made of clear blue stone that glowed with its own light. When it moved, the light changed colors like a rainbow. "Greetings, primitive humans," the crystal being said. Its voice was deep and seemed to come from everywhere at once. "I am Veltar, first speaker of the Galactic Council. You have been granted a great honor today." Lieutenant Kim Sujin, who was sitting at the weapons control station, tried hard not to smile. She looked over at Engineer Yoon Jihyo, who was covering her mouth with her hand. Both women had the same thought: did this alien really just call them primitive? "We have been watching your small world for many thousands of years," Veltar continued. "Your species shows promise, despite your violent nature and simple technology. We have decided to offer you a chance to join civilized space." Admiral Choi Do-hyun, the most senior officer on the ship, stepped forward next to Captain Hannah. He was an older man with gray hair and kind eyes, but right now those eyes had a twinkle of amusement in them. "That is very kind of you," Hannah replied in her most polite voice. "We would be honored to learn more about your council." Behind Veltar, other strange creatures moved around. There was something that looked like a giant insect with 6 arms, something else that seemed to be made of flowing water, and a creature covered in thick fur with too many eyes. All of them were looking at the humans with expressions that clearly said they thought they were much better and smarter. "You may dock your small vessel in Bay 7, Veltar announced. "We will provide you with proper escort ships to guide you safely." "Small vessel?" whispered Communications Officer Park Miho to the person next to him. The UES Defiance was one of humanity's largest exploration ships, over 2 kilometers long and equipped with the most advanced technology Earth had ever created. As they watched, several alien ships appeared around them. The ships were beautiful, with smooth curves and bright lights, but to the human crew they looked old-fashioned. The designs were the kind of thing human engineers had been building 50 years ago, before the great breakthrough in quantum engineering. "Those are their escort ships?" asked Lieutenant Kim Sujin quietly. "My grandfather flew better ships than those in the Mars colonies." Captain Hannah made a small hand signal that told her crew to stay quiet and professional. But she could not hide the slight smile that appeared on her face for just a moment. The docking process took several hours. The alien station was incredibly large, with thousands of levels and millions of rooms. As their ship moved through the docking bay, the crew could see hundreds of other alien vessels. Some were strange and wonderful, but none of them looked more advanced than what humanity had been building for decades. When they finally docked, a group of aliens came aboard to escort them to the council chambers. The leader was a tall, thin creature with purple skin and 4 arms. It moved in a way that suggested it thought it was very important and impressive. "Follow me, primitive ones," the purple alien said. "The council will see you now, though normally they do not waste time with such undeveloped species." As they walked through the corridors of the alien station, the human crew looked around with interest. The walls were covered with symbols and pictures that showed the history of the Galactic Council. There were images of many different alien species, all bowing down to the council members. There were pictures of planets being taken over and their populations being moved to new worlds. "Interesting artwork," Admiral Choi said quietly to Captain Hannah. "Very interesting," she agreed. The council chamber was enormous, with a high ceiling that disappeared into darkness above. Thousands of aliens filled seats that surrounded a central area where the humans were told to stand. The council members sat on a raised platform, looking down at them like judges in a courtroom. Veltar stood up, his crystal body catching the light and throwing rainbow patterns on the walls. "Humans of Earth," he said in his booming voice, "today you will learn your place in the galaxy. Today your species takes its first step toward true civilization." Captain Hannah looked up at the towering crystal being, then at the other council members, then at the thousands of aliens watching them. She thought about the technology on her ship, about the weapons that could destroy stars, about the computers that could think faster than any biological mind. Then she smiled. The next morning, Captain Hannah and her crew were brought back to the Great Council chamber. This time there were fewer aliens watching, but the council members all seemed very excited. Veltar's crystal body was glowing brighter than before, and the other council members were moving around in ways that suggested they were very pleased with themselves. Today, humans of Earth, Veltar announced, we will show you the wonderful future that awaits your species. We will offer you gifts beyond your wildest dreams. Admiral Choi Do-hyun sat in the chair they had given him, trying to look interested and grateful. Next to him, Engineer Yoon Ji-hyo was taking notes on a small device, though she was mostly trying not to laugh at what she was hearing. A new alien stepped forward, something that looked like a giant centipede with dozens of legs and several heads. When it spoke, all of its heads moved at the same time. I am Council Member Zithake. I will explain the integration process that your species will undergo. The alien activated a large screen that appeared in the air above them. Pictures began to show, displaying what the Council had planned for humanity. First, Zithake explained, your entire species will be relocated to 3 beautiful worlds in what you call the outer rim of the galaxy. These planets have been specially prepared for primitive species like yourselves. The pictures showed 3 planets that looked nice enough, but they were clearly small and far away from anything important. Lieutenant Kim Soo-jin recognized them as the kind of worlds that would be perfect for keeping a species isolated and under control. Your current population of 8 billion humans is far too large, continued another council member, this one looking like a tree with eyes. We will help you reduce this number to a more manageable 2 billion. The rest will be relocated to other purposes. Captain Hannah felt her smile disappear. Other purposes? She asked carefully. Labor colonies, research subjects, military service? The Trialien replied as if this was perfectly normal. Do not worry, they will be treated well as long as they obey council regulations. Communications Officer Park Miho made a small sound in his throat. Back on Earth, he had 3 children and a wife. The thought of them being separated and sent to labor colonies made his hands tighten into fists. But let us not focus on such details, Veltar said quickly, seeing that the humans were not looking as grateful as expected. Let us show you the wonderful technology we will share with your species. What happened next was something the human crew would remember and laugh about for the rest of their lives. The aliens began bringing out their greatest technological achievements, presenting each one as if it was a miracle that would change human civilization forever. First came the fusion reactor. A team of aliens wheeled out a machine the size of a small house, with tubes and wires covering every surface. It made loud noises and shot out sparks as they turned it on. This device, announced Zithake proudly, can power an entire city using the fusion of hydrogen atoms. It is beyond anything your primitive science could imagine. Engineer Yoon Ji-hyo looked at the machine and had to bite her lip to keep from speaking. The fusion reactor in her belt buckle was smaller, quieter, and could power 10 cities. The device the aliens were showing off looked like something from a museum. Next came their faster-than-light travel system. They brought out what looked like a large metal ring covered in crystals and strange symbols. With this technology, explained the Water Creature Council member, you can travel between stars in only months instead of years. Your chemical rockets will seem like toys compared to this. Admiral Choi nodded politely, but inside he was thinking about the quantum drive engines on their ship that could cross the entire galaxy in a few weeks. The alien FTL system looked like it might be able to go half the speed of their emergency backup drives. The medical technology demonstration was almost too much for the human crew to handle without laughing. The aliens brought out a machine that looked like it belonged in a hospital from 100 years ago, with needles and tubes and flashing lights everywhere. This medical device can extend your short human lifespans from merely 80 years to perhaps 120 years, announced Veltar. You will live almost as long as our shortest-lived council species. Lieutenant Kim Soo-jin thought about her grandmother, who was 150 years old and still ran marathons thanks to human medical technology. The alien medical machine looked like it might actually make people sicker rather than healthier. But the best part came when they demonstrated their computer technology. They brought out what they called their most advanced artificial intelligence, a room-sized machine with thousands of blinking lights and spinning parts that made noise like a factory. This computer can solve mathematical problems that would take your greatest human mind's years to complete, boasted the insect alien. It can calculate the movement of planets and predict weather patterns with amazing accuracy. Park Miho quietly activated his personal communication device and asked it a complex mathematical question. The answer came back in less than a second, displayed on a screen smaller than his fingernail. The alien computer was still working on a much simpler problem and making grinding noises. "These are truly impressive achievements," Captain Hannah said, managing to keep her voice steady and respectful. "We are honored that you would share such advanced technology with our humble species." The council members all looked very pleased with themselves. They clearly believed that the humans were overwhelmed with gratitude and amazement. "Of course," Veltar added, "all of this technology comes with certain requirements. You must dismantle all of your weapons, accept our guidance in all technological development, and never attempt to advance beyond the level we permit you to reach." "Naturally," Admiral Choi replied. "We would not want to disturb the wisdom of such an advanced civilization." The aliens all made sounds that seemed to indicate they were very satisfied with how this meeting had gone. They had no idea that the humans were already planning their response. The third day brought Captain Hannah and her crew back to the council chamber for what the aliens believed would be humanity's grateful acceptance of their generous offer. The council members were all present, their various forms glowing, buzzing, and moving with obvious satisfaction. They had prepared a grand ceremony to welcome humanity into their galactic community. Veltar stood tall, his crystal body shining with rainbow colors. "Humans of Earth," he announced to the gathered crowd of thousands, "today you will formally accept our protection and guidance. Today your species begins its journey toward true civilization." Captain Hannah rose from her chair slowly, looking around the enormous chamber. She could see aliens from dozens of different species, all watching with expressions that clearly showed they expected her to bow down and thank the council for their wonderful kindness. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," she began in her most polite voice, "my species has discussed your generous offer very carefully. We have considered every word you have spoken and every gift you have shown us." The aliens all leaned forward, waiting to hear the grateful acceptance they were sure was coming. "And we must respectfully decline," Hannah said with a gentle smile. The silence that followed was complete. For several seconds, not a single creature in the vast chamber made any sound. Then came a wave of confused murmurs, shocked gasps, and what sounded like alien curse words. Veltar's crystal body flickered rapidly through different colors. "You decline?" His voice cracked like breaking glass. "That is impossible. No species has ever refused the protection of the Galactic Council. We prefer independence," Admiral Choi explained, standing next to his captain. His voice was kind but firm. "Humanity has always valued the freedom to choose its own path." The tree-like council member made angry creaking sounds. "You do not understand, primitive humans. Without our guidance, your species will destroy itself within a few generations. We have seen it happen to countless worlds." "Perhaps," said Engineer Yoon Ji-hyo, stepping forward with her hands clasped behind her back, "but we would rather face that risk than give up our freedom to grow and learn." The insect alien Zith moved all of its heads at once. "You cannot possibly survive on your own. Your technology is thousands of years behind ours. You have no understanding of the dangers that exist in space." Lieutenant Kim Soo-jin exchanged a quick glance with Communications Officer Park Mi-ho. Both of them were thinking the same thing: should they tell the aliens the truth about human technology, or let them keep believing their own lies? Captain Hannah made the decision for them. "Since you have been so generous in showing us your achievements," she said sweetly, "perhaps we could share some of our own developments with you. As a gesture of friendship, of course." The council members all made sounds that suggested they found this idea amusing. What could primitive humans possibly show them that would be interesting? "Very well," Veltar said with what seemed like patience for children. "Show us these primitive tools of yours. It will be educational for our younger observers." What happened next changed everything. Engineer Yoon Ji-hyo walked to the center of the chamber and pulled out what looked like a simple metal box, no bigger than her hand. She set it on the floor and pressed a button on the side. Immediately the box began to unfold. Pieces of metal and crystal expanded outward, growing and connecting and building something new. Within minutes, a complete fusion reactor stood in the middle of the chamber, smaller, quieter, and more powerful than anything the aliens had ever seen. "This is one of our portable power units," Yoon Ji-hyo explained casually. "We use them for camping trips and emergency situations. It can power a city for about 50 years before it needs new fuel." The alien fusion reactor they had shown the day before suddenly looked like a giant, noisy, inefficient monster compared to the elegant human device. Lieutenant Kim Soo-jin stepped forward next, pulling out what appeared to be a simple wristwatch. "This is our standard personal communication device," she said, activating the holographic display. "It connects instantly to any other device anywhere in the galaxy using quantum entanglement." She demonstrated by calling the ship's computer, which answered immediately and began displaying real-time information about every star system within 100 light-years. The data was so detailed and accurate that several alien scientists in the audience made sounds of disbelief. Communications Officer Park Miho decided to join in. He activated his personal scanner and pointed it at the council members. "Interesting," he said, reading the results. "Veltar, you appear to be exactly 4,732 years old. You have a small crack in your crystal matrix that will need repair within the next 6 months, and your energy output suggests you haven't upgraded your internal systems in at least a millennium." Veltar staggered backward. No alien technology could scan him so thoroughly without his permission. How was this possible? But Admiral Choi provided the most shocking demonstration of all. He activated his personal tablet and began showing the aliens what humanity had been doing for the past century. Images appeared in the air above them, cities that floated in space, planets that had been moved to better orbits, stars that had been prevented from exploding. "We have been exploring space for about 200 years now," the Admiral explained. "We have visited most of the galaxy, though we prefer to observe rather than interfere. We have seen the Galactic Council's work on many worlds." The images changed to show some of the Council's protected species, beings living in simple conditions on reservation worlds while their home planets were strip-mined for resources. The Council members began looking very uncomfortable. "You have been watching us?" asked the water creature, its form rippling with what might have been fear. "Of course," Captain Hannah replied. "We like to know who our neighbors are before we introduce ourselves. We have been particularly interested in your methods of helping younger species develop." The sarcasm in her voice was gentle but unmistakable. The council chamber erupted in chaos as thousands of aliens began talking, arguing, and demanding answers. But through it all, the human crew stood calmly in the center, smiling politely as their hosts began to realize they had made a terrible mistake. The chaos in the council chamber continued for nearly an hour. Aliens were shouting at each other in dozens of different languages, pointing at the human crew, and demanding explanations from their leaders. Finally, Veltar raised his crystal arms and created a sound like thunder that made everyone fall silent. "Enough!" his voice boomed through the chamber. The rainbow colors in his body had turned dark red and orange, like an angry fire. "These humans dare to mock the Galactic Council with their lies and tricks." Captain Hannah stood quietly in the center of it all, her hands behind her back, watching the aliens with calm interest. "We have told no lies," she said simply. "Everything we have shown you is real." The tree-like council member made angry creaking sounds as it moved forward. "Impossible. Our records show that your species discovered fire only a few thousand years ago. You could not have developed such technology in so little time. Unless," said Admiral Choi thoughtfully, "your records are wrong. Or unless you have not been watching us as carefully as you claimed." This suggestion made several council members very angry. The insect alien Zithak moved all of its heads in agitation. "We know everything about every species in this galaxy. We have guided civilizations for millions of years. You are nothing but primitive animals playing with devices you do not understand." Engineer Yoon Ji-hyo tilted her head to one side. "If we are so primitive, how did we create technology that is clearly more advanced than yours? How did we build ships that your sensors cannot properly detect? How did we travel here faster than your fastest vessels?" The questions hung in the air like accusations. The aliens in the audience were beginning to whisper among themselves, and their whispers did not sound supportive of the council. Veltar's crystal body began to glow brighter, but now the light seemed harsh and threatening instead of beautiful. "You will submit to council authority," he declared. "No species is allowed to develop beyond the limits we set. This is the law that has kept peace in the galaxy for millions of years." "Whose peace?" asked Lieutenant Kim Soo-jin quietly. The question was simple, but it cut through all the grand speeches and political language. Whose peace were they really talking about? The peace of the species living on reservation worlds? The peace of the civilizations that had been broken apart and scattered? Or just the peace of the Galactic Council itself? "The peace of civilized space," snapped the water creature. "The peace that prevents young species from destroying themselves and others with dangerous technology. The peace that keeps order and prevents chaos." Communications Officer Park Miho activated his personal device again and began displaying images in the air. "Like the peace you brought to the Kethvar system? Where you relocated 6 billion beings to mining colonies after taking their homeworld?" The images showed the truth, a beautiful planet stripped bare of all resources, while its former inhabitants worked in horrible conditions on distant moons and asteroids. The aliens in the audience gasped when they saw the pictures. Or the peace you brought to the Jaltan Empire? Park continued, showing more images. Where you convinced them to dismantle their space fleet, then invaded them 6 months later when they were defenseless? More gasps from the audience. Many of the aliens were looking at the council members with new expressions of doubt and growing anger. These are lies. Veltar roared. Propaganda designed to turn you against your rightful leaders. Are they? Captain Hannah asked gently. She nodded to her crew and they began displaying more images, more data, more evidence of what the Galactic Council really did to the species under their protection. The truth was ugly and simple. For millions of years, the Council had been finding promising young civilizations and destroying them. They would arrive with offers of help and protection, just as they had done with humanity. They would study the species' technology and culture, stealing whatever innovations they could use. Then they would force the species to give up their weapons, their independence, and their freedom to grow. Any species that became too advanced, too independent, or too dangerous to control was simply eliminated. Their populations were scattered across the galaxy, their worlds were taken for resources, and their technologies were added to the Council's collection. You see, Admiral Choi explained to the shocked audience, the Galactic Council is not a government that protects younger species. It is a parasite that feeds on them. They have been doing this for so long that they have forgotten how to create anything new themselves. This accusation hit the council members like a physical blow. Several of them began making sounds of rage and denial. We maintain order, screeched the insect alien. Without us, the galaxy would be consumed by war and chaos. No, said Captain Hannah firmly. Without you, the galaxy would be free to grow and learn and become something better. You have kept thousands of species trapped in fear and ignorance for your own benefit. The water creature began to flow into a more threatening shape. Enough of this. You will submit to our authority, or you will be destroyed. Guards, deploy the Judgment Fleet. Alarms began sounding throughout the station. Through the chamber's windows, the humans could see thousands of alien warships appearing from hidden bases and cloaked stations. The ships surrounded the small human fleet, weapons charging and ready to fire. Veltar's crystal body was now glowing with angry red light. You have one final chance, humans. Surrender now and we will allow half of your species to live as servants. Refuse and we will demonstrate why no one defies the Galactic Council. Captain Hannah looked out at the massive alien fleet, then back at the council members. Her expression was sad but not surprised. You know, she said quietly, we really hoped we were wrong about you. She activated her communication device. Captain Song Minji, please show our hosts why humanity values freedom so highly. 6 months had passed since the day everything changed. Captain Lee Hanna walked through the corridors of what used to be called the Council's Grand Station but was now known as Unity Station. The changes were remarkable. Where once hung the symbols of the Galactic Council's power, now flew the flags of dozens of free worlds working together. The station buzzed with activity that would have been impossible under the old system. Aliens from species that had been enemies for centuries were now working side by side, sharing knowledge and building new technologies together. In one section, former council slaves were teaching their traditional crafts to beings from across the galaxy. In another, scientists who had been forced to hide their discoveries for generations were finally free to explore and create. Captain Hannah, called a familiar voice. She turned to see Engineer Yoon Ji-hyo approaching with a data pad in her hands and a smile on her face. The morning reports are ready. I think you will find them interesting. Hannah took the pad and began reading as they walked toward the main observation deck. The numbers were impressive. 17 more star systems had declared their independence from council control just this week. 4 new species had requested membership in the Terran Federation. Trade agreements were being signed between worlds that had never been allowed to communicate before. Any word from the former council members? Hannah asked. Oh yes, Ji-hyo replied with a grin. Veltar sent another message this morning. The third one this week. They reached the observation deck, a huge room with windows that looked out into space. Hannah could see the busy docks where ships from 100 different worlds were loading and unloading cargo, passengers, and ideas. Human vessels worked alongside alien craft that came in every shape and size imaginable. Lieutenant Kim Soo-jin was already there, talking with Admiral Choi Do-hyun and Communications Officer Park Mi-ho. They were reviewing reports from human patrol ships that were now protecting trade routes and helping settle disputes between different species. Captain, Admiral Choi said when he saw her approach, we have received formal requests from 12 more worlds asking for our help in establishing their own governments. It seems word is spreading about what freedom can accomplish. Hannah nodded, looking out at the stars. It was hard to believe how much had changed since that day when Captain Song Minji had demonstrated humanity's military technology to the Council. The alien fleet had been disabled so quickly and completely that many of the Council's own species had not even realized a battle had taken place. The human weapons had not destroyed a single ship or killed a single being. Instead, they had simply turned off every weapon, every engine, and every communication system in the entire alien fleet. Thousands of warships had been left floating helplessly in space while their crews stared at control panels that no longer responded to their commands. How did they do that? Veltar had whispered, his crystal body flickering with confused colors. Nanobotic infiltration, Captain Hannah had explained patiently. Microscopic machines that can reprogram any electronic system from the inside. We have been using them for construction and repair work for decades. The demonstration had broken the Council's power completely. When their own species saw how easily the mighty Galactic Council had been defeated by a single human ship, the rebellion began immediately. Captain, Park Miho said, interrupting her thoughts, we have that call scheduled with the Zephyrian delegation. They want to discuss joining the Federation. Hannah walked over to the communication station and activated the long-range transmitter. The screen lit up to show three beings that looked like tall, graceful plants with silver leaves and gentle voices. Greetings, Captain Hannah, the lead Zephyrian said. We are grateful for this opportunity to speak with you. Our world has been under Council control for 800 years. We had forgotten what it meant to be free until your people showed us it was possible. Freedom is not something we can give you, Hannah replied gently. It is something you must choose for yourselves. We can only promise to help protect that choice once you have made it. The conversation continued for an hour, covering topics that would have been forbidden under Council rule, trade agreements, technology sharing, cultural exchanges, and mutual defense pacts. When it ended, the Zephyrians were officially the 43rd species to join the Terran Federation. As the communication ended, another signal came through. This one was from a single world at the edge of what used to be Council space. The screen showed Veltar, looking very different from the proud, powerful being he had been 6 months ago. His crystal body was dim and cracked, and his voice was quiet and humble. Captain Hannah, he began slowly, I speak for my people when I request, when I beg, for permission to join your federation. Hannah studied the former council leader for a moment. As equals? She asked. As equals, Veltar confirmed. We have learned much about ourselves in these past months. We have discovered that we had forgotten how to create, how to grow, how to be more than we were. We want to remember. All species are welcome in the Federation, Hannah said, provided they agree to respect the freedom and dignity of all other beings. Provided they promise never again to try to control or dominate others. We promise, Veltar said, and his crystal body began to glow with a soft, hopeful light. After the call ended, Hannah stood quietly at the observation deck, watching the ships moving among the stars. Admiral Choi joined her at the window. Do you think it will last? He asked. This new peace we have built? Hannah smiled. It is not really peace, she said. It is something better. It is freedom. And free beings will always find ways to grow, to learn, and to become something greater than they were before. Through the windows they could see human patrol ships moving through space alongside vessels from dozens of other worlds. They were not conquerors or rulers, they were guardians of a simple idea that every species deserved the chance to reach for the stars and find their own path among the infinite possibilities of the universe.